Hello, everyone. Welcome to Leadership and Innovation Unlocked with Inclusive Collective, where we bring you news and analysis of the latest in people and workplace culture. And as a bonus, we share stories and learnings of leaders and organizations driving performance and innovation through inclusion. I'm your co-host, Rob Hadley, a people and culture strategist specializing in operational excellence, transformations, and analytics. And I am joined by my friend, as I always am, Dr. Nadia Butt, a workplace culture strategist and talent development consultant. Nadia,
Hi.
welcome. It is so lovely to see you.
It's
Ramadan
good to
Mubarak.
Thank you. Yes, it
We
is Ramadan.
we have not. I see you all the time at this
I
time of
know.
year, and I haven't seen you. How are you doing?
I know.
How's it going?
How's it go? It's going, So
Yeah.
like you ask, I'm supposed to say everything's great. I'm fasting, I'm reflecting now, not trying not to think about coffee, but no, honestly, this is like literally my favorite time of the year.
Yeah.
It really is. It's like it's grounding, it's reflective, it's clarifying. Um, it does help me become more intentional, but I started off a little bit late because I was traveling, so I wasn't fasting when Ramadan first started. And then I kind of jumped into it a little bit later, like a couple days later, and my family was like gung ho. They were like already in the Ramadan spirit, and I was like kind of creep. But overall, it's going well.
Is
The
coffee the
days are
thing?
shorter.
I hadn't heard that from you before. Is
What?
coffee is that the thing you?
I get a headache if I don't have my coffee. So
Oh
yeah,
no.
it's been hard to not. It's usually very hard to not have coffee during Ramadan. It's extremely hard not to drink water too, but coffee is usually my thing.
Yeah, yeah. No, I would definitely trade water for coffee.
Yeah, right. How are you though? How's your week been?
Okay.
Anything top of mind for you?
Anything top of mind? No, I'm excited about the show today. Yeah,
Yeah,
there's a lot of things on my mind, and I think we'll get
we're
to
gonna
those
we're
things
gonna
as we get
talk a
into the
lot about
show.
it today. So actually, let's that segues in greatly. So today on Leadership and Innovation Unlocked, we're gonna talk about Vermont. Is really making childcare more affordable, how Accenture is forcing AI adoption. And then we welcome my very good colleague and friend, Dr. Adina Nichols. You're a very good friend and colleague, too.
Right.
Head
Yeah.
of Global Learning Technology Enablement at Uber. All of that, plus, of course, we always rant and we rave. But first, let's get to the deep drop. So go ahead. What do you have for us this week?
Yeah. So the consulting firm Accenture, as you know,
Mm-hmm.
a big consulting firm, they are tracking the use of AI for their employees. They've told their senior managers and associates that if they want to be promoted, that they're going to have to use AI regularly. So, and the company will spend over $1 billion training its consultants this year. A big chunk of that is devoted to AI upskilling. Nadia, the floor is yours. What do you think?
Well, I feel like this is not the first company that I've heard doing this where they're
Mm,
tying like promotions to AI. I think it's a bold signal, to be honest with you. I think it talks a lot about like AI fluency, that it's not optional anymore. I think it's becoming like a core part of leadership. I get the intent. We've said this so many times before. I think the like real question shouldn't be, are you using I think it's, are you using it thoughtfully?
mm,
Right? Are you using it ethically? Are you using it to help drive like real impact? Right. So,
right.
and then I think about like when promotions are part of talent management practices, right? So I do think that this move could fundamentally reshape how talent management works and the
Sure.
processes and practices. I think we're going to see things like competency models or performance reviews, maybe even behavioral expectations from leadership evolve really fast. I
Right.
think
Right.
that's already happening. But what were your reactions?
No, you stole my notes,
Oh, there
and
you
so I apologize, but so it's a stick, right? And we talked, if you go all the way back to the last episode, I think we talked about sticks with DEI, right? And previous, and trying to get people to change their behavior. And so
are.
sticks are fine. I mean, but they add fear, distrust, anger,
Yeah. Yeah.
like into your organization.
Yeah.
So when you start to monitor that use, and that's the other thing is like we're talking about monitoring the use. And every time you start monitoring the use of something, you're going to get unproductive behavior, right? So
Yeah.
remember when
Right.
companies were returning to the office, and so they were monitoring badge use, and so people would rotate their badges amongst their coworkers and their friends, or they would badge in and then leave immediately, right? And so
Yeah.
people will always try to game whatever the system is when you're monitoring. So, and then to your point, tie promotions to the AI driven outcomes that you're looking for, right? Like, so tools developed for your clients or reduce cycle time or in completing decks, right?
Sure.
Like there's probably 1,000 people there right now
Efficiency.
making a
Yeah.
deck, right? So,
Right.
tie AI use to the objectives, not necessarily to doing or using it, right? Like,
Yeah.
to me, it seems like there's a lot of good. I get it. It makes, like I said, they're spending $1 billion, and so you want to make sure that people are using it, and it's really important to the client base that they're serving. But the monitoring thing, really, I get a little worried.
I do too. It's funny. My husband actually, who does a lot of work in AI and finance, always reminds me that the like human oversight it's critical when deploying AI, right? So like
Right.
these systems are trained on like large volumes of that historical data. We've talked about the bias that's embedded in AI models, and then their outputs reflect the patterns in the data, right? And they don't
Mm-hmm.
automatically update or like self-correct in real time, and that's why he's such a big advocate that like human in the loop approach. Have you heard this human in the loop
Yeah.
approach? It
Yeah.
matters, right? Like, so your leaders that monitor outputs, they validate the accuracy, they ensure alignment. Something about like bias and hallucinations. I'm
Mm-hmm.
starting to learn all these new terms like hallucinations, unreliable responses. So it is, yeah. I think there's a big component of that, and I think companies need to keep an eye, especially if they're expecting their employees to leverage these things. I think they need to invest in upskilling, you know,
Yeah. Yeah.
in their especially if they're expecting this out of employees. But
Yeah. First time you've alluded to your husband on the show as well.
I
So
know,
there you
is
go.
it? Here we go.
You,
All
you
right,
also
let's shift into the next
you
topic.
also sent me a video. Tell me about the
I
video.
did. So the New York Times did a vlog, that video,
Hmm.
about Vermont passing Act 76 in 2023, which created a 0.44% payroll tax on employers that generates about $125 million a year to fund childcare subsidies. So families now pay a sliding scale. The lower income families can pay nothing, and higher income families are capped at roughly 10% of their income. So in just a year, it's helped create over 1,200 new childcare slots and stabilize wages for providers.
Hmm.
Rob, I see this. I guess the question is, do you see this as a smart workforce strategy? I know we've talked about childcare a number of times. Or do you think this is a little bit more risky?
No, I think it's a great. I think it's a tremendous strategy, and we talked about. I think we mentioned this in the context of something that was happening in Iowa earlier. I know New Mexico has done some aggressive things with regard to childcare,
Mm-hmm.
and so it, the only problem, Nadia, is if
Mm-hmm.
it's fixed at the state level, right? So Vermont, great, they're doing it. But places like Utah, where I live, like the parents are never going to get this help, right? And so
Mm-hmm.
I see this as a huge unlock for the economy. If people can get affordable childcare, they can work, they can create. It opens up a lot of opportunity for everyone, and it's just not something that if you do it state by state, not everyone's going to have necessarily the same access and opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
So what this made me think of was how ridiculous that State of the Union was last week, where the president came out and said everything's great,
Mm-hmm.
but in this particular video, there's people talking about paying $3,500 a month for childcare and in rural Vermont. So people
Which is
aren't
like
feeling
very
great.
real. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So it would be nice if there was someone working on this at a federal level,
Sure.
and it would be nice if the companies that make so much freaking money
So much money.
uh, would actually lobby for something like this. Because as the CEO of the ski resort in this particular video talked about,
Yeah.
this is this really really helps the workforce, but it also helps the companies as well. So I think
Sure.
that people, there's a real opportunity for a company to put their weight behind this. There's a real opportunity for politicians to put their weight behind something like
Yeah.
this and make a
I
real
agree.
difference for people.
Yeah, I think that's so right on. Like positioning childcare as like a economic infrastructure, right? Really having strong business advocacy behind it. I think it reframes it as a workforce investment. But you're right. I think one of the downfalls is like states may not be, not all states might be able to approach it in that way. So federal funding is crucial. And I think that shift could be so powerful and impactful for so many families across the board. But all right. Anyways, those were two really great items to discuss this week. Thank you for that, Rob. Folks, that's it for the deets. We'll be right back with our guest doctor, Adina Nichols, Head of Global Learning Technology Enablement at Uber. Rob, today's guest is someone who holds a really special place in my professional and academic journey. This week, we are joined by Dr. Adina Nichols, an incredible leader at the intersection of learning, technology, and scale, and someone who I've had the pleasure of knowing in multiple chapters of my life. Not to talk about myself all the time, but here we are. Adina is a former colleague for both mine and Rob's, but our relationship deepened in a very meaningful way when she served on my dissertation committee.
Nice.
So, yeah, we've really been through the trenches together, right? She supported me through the highs, the doubts, the rewrites, and all the messy middle that comes with earning a doctorate. And I'm forever grateful for her wisdom and honesty and encouragement. Today, Adina is the head of global learning technology enablement at Uber, where she leads a strategy and infrastructure that powers learning for a massive global workforce, bringing together AI, operational excellence, and human centered design. She also brings deep academic expertise, which really makes her uniquely positioned to bridge cutting edge technology with how adults actually learn and grow. Adina, it means so much to have you here with us. Welcome to Leadership and Innovation Unlocked with Inclusive Collective.
Awesome. Thank you. That was a very nice introduction. I appreciate you having me here today. This is such an honor.
Adina, we finally got you on the show. It's great to see you.
We did it. We did it,
We
Rob.
did it. We did
It took a couple of
It's been a
years.
long time coming. But I wanted to start. So you're global learning technology enablement at Uber, right?
Mhm.
And it says here, and so Nadia wrote this, that you had 2 decades of building learning ecosystems. I don't know if that's possible, because you must have started very, very young.
I
if
know.
that's
I
the
was like,
case.
if you ask me my history, then yeah, I'm going to age myself fast.
But so, there's a huge shift in learning and development, right? So we've been through a lot of digital transformation, a lot of changes in technology before. What's different about AI from your perspective? What makes this such a unique moment for learning and development?
It's been such a wild ride, right? Like started hearing, rumblings about AI maybe a couple of years ago, a few years ago, and it's coming in these early iterations. And then it seems in this past year, it's just exploded. And so it's really having us take a pause on everything that we do and say, are we still working on the right strategies? Are we still investing in the right technologies? What do we need to be thinking about differently? What changes for the learner? And so it does become like these very important conversations to try to predict what's going to happen in the next 6 months to a year, because everything is changing so quickly.
So rapidly, yeah. So I'm curious. So Rob, I don't know if you had a follow up for that, but I do, because I'm curious about just diving into AI. Just like as we think about how things are rapidly changing, AI is a huge component of that. Is there like what is fundamentally different in the learning technology space as it relates to AI today?
Yeah, I mean, I can only speak from the perspective of where I sit right now. So I'm sure it's very different across different types of industries and organizations and universities. But what I'll say is fundamentally different from my perspective is I'm not necessarily training people on the same skill sets that we used to train people on. I mean, even if you think about it from at just everyday, all of us perspective, is reading and writing and research and math really all that important anymore? Or is it more important to be able to say, okay, AI tool, I need to know how to prompt you to the best of my ability to give me outputs that are going to help me do X, Y, or Z? And so I think that there's a fundamental shift in just the skills we need to be employees, the skills we need to teach our employees to know how to use this new technology in a really efficient and effective way.
Yeah, and I think, and so, that raises a lot of questions. I saw some, you bring up a point. I saw some research yesterday that that I guess for students, the ability to so cognitive decline has over the last 3 years has is being measured. That there's a pretty precipitous drop in ability to think creatively. And so do companies think about these things? Like, how do you balance, like the way you just laid it out? Obviously using the tools is very important, but do you think about or worry about declines in, or I guess what we're talking about is work slop within the organization? How do you balance that, and how do you think about it as an L&D professional?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's very easy to go in and do really bad AI prompting, right? And so, junk in, junk out. I've done it myself. You don't provide enough detail. You don't have enough creativity behind the thought of what you're trying to accomplish. So I think that, yeah, it's very important. But, maybe in the past where we were teaching people to code, maybe we don't need to teach people to code anymore, but maybe we do need to teach people to have very creative thinking, to have ideas and innovation, to have problem solving skills to say, okay, I can't think of this solution, but I can have a conversation with a Gen AI tool that's very well researched and maybe come to a solution. And so I do think it's important to keep those skills up and not let them decline, because that's what's going to help really, build successful agentic AI tools.
And I'm curious too, like from your perspective, Adina, like you in particular, you operate at a really complex intersection, right? Like people, technology, massive global scale. How do you think about leadership in that space, especially when decisions about, say, like the platforms and the systems, how they directly impact things like employee experience, organizational performance, or even now just the usage of AI?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I think that the piece that stands out the most from a leadership perspective is the change management of everything. Because we can sit here and say, like, wow, look how much AI has changed work in the workforce and the tools that we have in such a short space of time. But how are we as humans processing that change? We're not
Right.
going to get through our change curves as quickly as the machines are. And so leaders have a huge responsibility to empower teams to take time to process the change, take time to learn the change, take time to learn how to use the tools and practice them in a real daily way. And if you're not creating that space, there's not going to be adoption, and then your tech's going to fail anyway. And I think as somebody who leads tech transformations, the
Yeah.
hardest part of a tech transformation is the people adoption of the tech. And so you have to bring the people along. And if you don't, your tech is kind of useless because nobody's using it.
Well, sorry, Rob, I know, but let me let me tell. But then, how do leaders think about that? So when you think about adopting, right, like new technology, you think of behavior change, you think of even mindset shift, right? Like I think there's a lot of folks struggling with like, what is AI? What does it mean for us? How does this impact our work? Like, what tends to make or break adoption from a leader? Like, what should leaders do to make that change as either seamless as possible or as effective as possible? What are some things that you might suggest?
Oh, I have so many things. We don't have time for them all. um,
Give us a few.
We didn't
it's,
ask
it,
if they were doing them, but
Yeah.
you're only giving me 20 minutes here. No, seriously, it's very hard, because I think what I appreciate at the organization I'm at right now is that we have very clearly prescribed to one change model and one change methodology, and it's used throughout the whole company. And so the expectations of leaders are set out very clearly about what's expected of them. And it's really important when you're having a big transformation initiative to not look at it as if it's just a project or a point in time. Because once you've implemented, there's this ongoing reinforcement that has to be constant, has to be daily, has to be measured, that people are doing the change, right? And
Mhm.
really, that early on buy-in to the change and that motivation to try something new and learn something new, managers create that space. Managers create that excitement. So it's really, I think, the direct manager to you is who's going to shape your adoption of change the most. But it has to
Mm.
be a daily conversation, a daily habit to really monitor, make sure that the behavior is forming.
It's always that middle manager, like that frontline manager, middle manager layer that really I feel like is that sweet spot for organizations.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and so I love that. I'm glad we got into it, but I want to back up, and because I am not an L&D professional, I don't know if you know that, I have to rely on you folks to help me in this space. So, what about AI makes it exciting for you? What is the potential? What are the things that you can do that you couldn't do before as an L&D professional? What are the things that employees can how they can learn better, faster, more efficiently, things like that?
Yeah, glad you asked that question. I think what I'm really excited about right now, as as an L&D professional who's been in this for so many years, the training we used to create always was very generic. Like everybody would go to class together and sit in class, and every learner got the same material, the same experience. So, Rob, you weren't in L&D, but you went to all of our classes. I know you did.
How dare you? How
Mhm.
dare
Lots
you?
of
Nadia
lots of training.
Nadia would mix it up fantastically when she was presenting that material.
I
uh,
appreciate that, Rob.
yeah, so I think what excites me is we now have this technology that we can program to look at each individual person against their performance metrics and say, what is the learning intervention that's needed? How do we personalize it for tens of thousands of people around the globe that's going to give them what they need right in the moment of their work to help them do whatever task they're doing better. And
Mm.
we talked about that for years. Like we've talked about this, but it's just the tech has not been there to the extent that we, I think, have always wanted it to really be able to make it at a very large, global, complex scale. And so that's where I'm excited right now, is I feel like we're finally getting to this point where people will get a very individual solution to what they need
Mm.
to be better at their jobs.
I love that because I think what you're speaking to is this design of like the learning ecosystem in practice. And I think of oftentimes there's, say, like a neurodivergent learner, and their needs might be very different than someone who is neurotypical. And so that alone, and then also just the different needs of, say, like a new manager versus a tenured manager, right? Like their learning needs are just so different. But what do organizations often underestimate about how adults actually learn? Because I know you mentioned like the traditional way of learning and kind of like traditional curriculum and so what as you are thinking in your, you work in an organization now, and the work that you do is really like very progressive and very kind of forward thinking. What could you say to other, L&D professionals and organizations about not underestimating kind of how adults actually learn? What would you give as advice?
I mean, for me, what I've experienced, and this has been throughout my entire career, and I'm very passionate on the topic. But at the end of the day, learning doesn't really happen until you do whatever it is you're learning. You can hear
Mhm.
the theory, you can pass the test, you can take the little assessment, but you're not going to remember it if you don't immediately put it into some sort of practice. And
Mhm.
and then build on that practice. And I think that even with all the
Hmm.
technology that's coming, fundamentally, by the way adults learn, you have to really transfer knowledge. And and if you want to take that even one step further, you can do an even better job of transferring knowledge if you go from being able to do the task to go to then teach someone on your team how to do that task. And then you really embed that knowledge and that behavior, and then you're sharing it with your organization so that others can learn it. And I think that
Hmm.
that practice, whether it was 20 years ago or today, it holds true. Right? And we need to adapt our tech to make it help adults learn the way that they need to learn.
Yeah, you mentioned, and that's always been true. That's probably true with everything that we ever tried to implement or any kind of change in the organization. So, I definitely appreciate that. And I also wanted to ask, so you mentioned a little bit earlier, people are somewhat overwhelmed by the pace of change, right? Like we just keep layering change and change and change on top of people in the organization. And so, what would you tell folks about creating space? How do you help people that are overwhelmed by change? What's your advice? What's best practice here?
Oh, different tactics work for different styles, right? I think what's worked for me is, and especially as a manager, like you have to say, okay, I here's why we're changing. This is why it's important. So that the motivation is there and the messaging is there. But to me, it's we all work in these crazy environments right now. The pace of work is just escalating year over year. I've talked to people
Hmm.
all through my network this past month, all my different vendors, all these different companies, and everybody says the same thing. Like, I've never had a January this busy before. And
Yeah.
if you're that busy, there's no time to learn something new and to practice it and to adopt
Right.
it. And
Yeah.
so it's a prioritization activity in my mind to say, okay, what can I cut out of your day or out of my own day to say, I'm going to take the time to do this. And I mean, it's easier said than done because we all live the meeting world pace, but
Mhm.
I truly think that you have to make room for it or it's not going to happen.
What a great reminder, especially as like we're still at the beginning of the year, and just to kind of wrap up this discussion, I'm curious for you personally, professionally, as you reflect back to, because critical reflection is what you're talking about. How do you think about the things that you learn and then apply them, right? As you think about 2025, and now we're in at the start of 2026, what are you looking forward to into trying something new or adapting something new for you as kind of a leader within the organization?
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy because I've been operating under a multi-year strategy, and I've had certain plans for various tech that we want to introduce and learn. And so much has changed with AI tools and just what I've learned with those tools over the last year that it makes me say, I need to step back and keep learning because maybe I don't buy, maybe I build. And maybe
Mhm.
I can do things differently um, rather than going out and finding the next tool in the market. So I I think that that's my personal challenge is to say, how do I grow my skills even beyond where they are and see does my plans from 3 years ago still hold up or do they need to be revisited and rethought because things have changed?
I love that. Well, thank you for sharing that. Thank you for this wonderful conversation, and thank you for finally joining us.
Finally.
um, finally. But Dr. Adina Nichols, again, thank you for joining us on Leadership and Innovation Unlocked. We look forward to the next time you join us.
Well, thank you guys. I had fun. Thank you for this.
Stay with us, folks. We'll be right back for our Con Reflections and Raves and Rants.
Welcome back. We just finished chatting with Dr. Adina Nichols of Uber. Nadia,
Yes.
what do you,
Isn't she
what,
great?
what, isn't she great? Isn't she great?
Isn't
You,
she
you said earlier she's
lovely?
both of our friends. I don't
She's
know if you
both
know
of our
that, but
friends.
yeah.
She's my
So,
mentor, right? Like, I mean, she was on my dissertation committee. She's just like, I have so much respect for her. I admire her work. But, what honestly, what really stood out, we just keep going back to like AI and like the people that are doing like AI, real AI transformation. Like, they just continue to say AI isn't just a technology shift, right? It's a human shift. So
right.
like, yeah, these tools are evolving rapidly, but the real work is in rethinking the skills, like she mentioned, right? Like rethinking strategy. And then I think most importantly, like leading people through that change. Like the future isn't about replacing human capability. It's about, I think it's what I'm hearing from these folks, or it's about elevating the creativity, the problem solving, maybe the personalized learning at scale, right? She talked a lot about how to individualize learning for people, how we're not really learning those same skill sets that we once needed to have. But none of that works with adoption. And she stretched that. She specifically said, like, adoption is really a leadership responsibility. And she gave some really great practical actions for managers to take. But what were any thoughts from you?
Yeah, I think that, I think I'm reflecting on what you just reflected on. And I think that there's still time, like we're in the point where there's still time to build capabilities in these tools, right? So there will be a time when there is, companies will take the opportunity to reduce their workforce based on the productivity gains for some of these tools. But right now, we're not there yet. And so it's time to roll up your sleeves and get into it. And companies like Uber and, people like Adina can help these workforces really figure out how to leverage these tools.
Yeah. And I just really appreciated from like her learning development background, the practical actions that managers should really start to take is like creating that space for learning, right? If you don't intentionally like remove something from your team's plate, then adoption just won't happen. And then creating that space for people to like mess up and fail, but like there's no repercussion. So I thought that was really, really well said.
Awesome. All right, you're going to rant for us today, Nadia?
I'm going to rant. I'm tired though, Rob. So I really don't have the energy to fully unpack everything from this last week, but there was a situation at Hunter College to the BAFTA headline. All I will say, because I don't feel like going into detail, but like accountability and humanity shouldn't be controversial, and for some reason it is. And the fact that we're still having these conversations in 2026, it's exhausting, and I'm tired of the cycles. That's it.
Yeah. No, you sent me those articles, and it was just like, I had the same reaction, just like a heaviness, like a weight, right? Like it's like, I can only imagine. Well, let me end on something that I think is pretty uplifting and positive.
Yes, please.
in some ways. I just wanted to acknowledge the U.S. women's hockey team for their gold medal win in the Milan Cortina Olympics. The women's team, Nadia, I don't know if you know this, they've won 3 gold medals since 1998.
Amazing.
They beat an incredibly talented and tough Canadian team.
That's right.
And while the men's team was given a White House State of the Union reception, the women were forced to respond to comments that the president made and took away, which took away from some of their accomplishments. So and it's bigger to be acknowledged on this show than to actually be, invited to the State of the Union.
I would agree.
So I want to go ahead and level things out there by congratulating.
I love it. Yeah,
women.
congrats to them. I love it.
Yes. All right. Well, that is our show. Leadership and Innovation Unlocked is a production of Inclusive Collective Media, edited by R.A. Mathey. We'd love to hear from you. Seriously, one person, write me an email at inclusivecollectivepodcast@gmail.com. Send us your feedback. Tell us, that you love us or that you like the women's hockey team, whatever. I don't care. You can also find us on LinkedIn, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook. Also, be sure to subscribe or follow us and rate us wherever you get your podcasts, and share us with your friends. Thanks again to Dr. Adina Nichols and my dear friend, Dr. Nadia Butt. Great to see you.
You too.
And we'll see you all again in 2 weeks.
Be well.